Hey everybody, Dr. James Petrick here with Prior Lake Spinal Care. Welcome to day 7 of Tic Tac A.D.I.O. X3. It has been an honor and a privilege to present this very unique, very impactful information. As a reminder, this is all designed to help you get more out of your chiropractic care, number one. Number two, enhance every layer of your being. I got a mirror image thing here, bear with me. Every single layer of your being. We're talking about the physical shell that we work on in chiropractic. Also that second layer, there's a ripple effect that happens, the mental, emotional, and social part of our being, as well as even the spiritual. Now, today we're going to talk more about the spiritual, okay? And don't worry, we're not talking about anything religious, okay? But obviously I have my own bias, and I have my information from a certain source that I interpret the world through when it comes to layer 3 and layer 2. And that's very special to me, and that's probably why I love presenting on this information just as much as I like talking about chiropractic in its purest sense, just talking about vertebrae and nerves and so forth. But today we're talking about layer 3, and again, that unchanging element. We're starting with a fixed element on the far left, or the principle, and we're talking about getting in alignment with the principle, because there's always a dilemma. Are we in alignment? Are we not? This is true in chiropractic. It's also true in our level-headedness, our singleness of mind, if you will. Right there in the center, we talked about disintegration versus ripwim, which is our ability to have full reasoning capabilities, our intuition, our perception, our willpower, our imagination, and our memory. And we talked about a special journaling procedure that I developed back in 2017 that's really helped me out a lot in getting through some trials that I experienced in life. Not self-inflicted, just kind of stuff happens, and stuff happens in everybody's life. And notice it says identity and trials. Now, I happen to believe that part of being a human being is we have a lot of opportunity to stand there or sit there at moments in our life and to say, I am. Yes, this is me. This is what I'm made of. The going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, I used to put my identity in sports. That's my old coach, Coach Nelson. And I'm proud to say that his dad, I was one of his dad's favorite players, and his dad is actually 104 years old. He won a lot of state championships with Anoka back in the day. And Coach Nelson won with Blaine, not with us. We lost 2 state championships in a row by a total of 5 points. But then once he started coaching with Minnetonka, his own son, our former ball boy, Jesse, actually won the state championship as a quarterback. So that was really cool. It's great to see good people like Coach Nelson do well and succeed. But you know, when I was in high school, I heard that my dad was getting a job transfer, and I whined and complained, I gotta stay back in Minnesota. We got a chance of winning a state championship. I got all my friends here. I worked so hard to get on the team, and somehow convinced my parents, all right, here's the joint checking account. We'll pay for your groceries. We're going to put you up in an apartment. Your 20-year-old brother is going to be your legal guardian. And there I was, the envy of my class for a year and a half of high school, half of my junior year and my full senior year. And that was quite a ride. But I mention this again because I really got my identity in sports. Even my godfather, I shared a story about my godfather. And I even asked him at one point, I said, who am I? Who is Jim Petrick? And he said, you love sports. And so it's true. You couldn't even tell what color the wall paint was in my room because I had sports posters everywhere. Got my identity in sports. And, you know, losing those 2 state championship games, and I know it's just a sport, and I had no chance at going pro, so it wasn't like this Super Bowl heartbreaking experience. But it was, I think, a defining moment. Coming so close and losing in the final seconds was really, really devastating. And you can dwell on it, or you can learn and grow from it, right? It can make you a better person. And so that's why I say, especially when it comes to journaling, you've heard of the old show Unsolved Mysteries. Well, I like to say that unresolved trials are really your best resource, your gold mine for getting more meaning out of life, for changing the past. You can't change past events, but you can change the meaning that you give to them. Because once again, if you believe that you are meant to trend upward and to the right in all areas of your life, you've seen this poster before, I've talked about it, sitting down, going over your results. There's a downward trend before that, wasn't there? But if you're being consistent, you have no choice but to realize that those were not setbacks. They weren't roadblocks, but they were actually stepping stones. And that's a tough pill to swallow, and it's easy for me to say, and I know that you know this, but unresolved trials really, really are a gold mine in terms of spiritual development. Because here's the deal. What do we know? What are the inevitables? Trials are inevitable in this life. And we can only traject to the level our foundation allows. So how good is your foundation? How sturdy is it? Is it on quicksand or is it on a rock? Now I want to share a personal story here, and this is how I could be wrong about everything I claim to know. I recently had a dream that was so vivid that I asked myself, boy, this is really neat. Am I dreaming or is this real? And I assured myself, no, I'm not dreaming. This is real. And then I woke up. So I might be wrong about this. I'm not trying to be preachy, but I don't want to plagiarize either, because, again, pretty much everything that I got from layer 3 and layer 2, yes, is from my own journaling, but it's primarily from the book of James. The first 8 verses, the first paragraph of the book of James. Okay? And I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to be preachy, but I just want you to understand where I'm coming from, and I'm trying to do honor to this, because part of above, down, inside out is authenticity. Okay? And so what those verses say, it's 8 verses, and I like to call them the solids, right? Just like there's 8 solid pool balls in the game of billiards. It's James, a bondservant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the tribes scattered abroad. Greetings. Now, what does that first line tell us? It tells us that it's more important to seek a relationship with the Creator and the great designer and sustainer of the world than it is to try to have a social connection with people, right? If I have a message that I want to deliver to my loved ones, I have to be sincere. And I can't be sincere, I can't have the absence of pride if I'm not humble. And I can't do that unless I'm connected to God. And I had that, I don't want to say revelation, but that discovery, that thing that I learned, and it completely fits with this algorithm that we're talking about of the unchanging principle and the dilemma and the result. I have a message. It's up to me to be sincere and to be authentic, and there's no way I can do that unless I'm connected to God. All right, so I guess that's the extent of my religion that I'd be preaching today. Actually not. You know I'm joking around. But here's the thing. People have said that the book of James are the wisest words in the New Testament. And I happen to think they're probably the wisest words ever written of all time, because we live in a New Testament era, right? It's not the Old Testament with the Proverbs and the Ecclesiastes and those wisdom books. And this man grew up with Jesus. So he had, I think, a pretty good interpretation. He probably transacted and did business with the Greeks on the other side of the mountain. So he knew about terms like arete and eudaimonia and euthymia. And I think a lot of what our modern culture values in terms of wellness and being well-rounded and being connected. Verses 2 all the way through 8 say, count it all joy whenever you fall into various trials, not if, but when, we should expect it. And if we should expect it, then we know that we are either an embracer or a victim or a denier of trials. And I'm sure you'll agree there's only one way to handle that, and that is to be an embracer of them. To say, bring it on, because if we don't make mistakes, we don't grow. If we're not growing, we get complacent, we become apathetic, we create drama in our own lives just to feel inspired to get reintegrated once again and to pay attention and get back on track, right? Count it all joy whenever you fall into various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance or patience. Let perseverance or patience, depending on the interpretation, finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. They're aiming for perfection. So I think we can be, and journaling helps us to be, a realistic perfectionist. That we can hold that ideal in mind. We can be level-headed enough to understand that, yeah, we make mistakes, but we can aim for perfection. And it's in aiming for perfection that we can actually feel like we're being pulled instead of pushing all the time. And here's why. If any of you lacks wisdom, this is verses 5 through 8 now. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who generously gives to all without finding fault. But when he asks, he must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. He's a double-minded man, unstable in all he does. So layer 2, again, we talked about the necessity of cultivating singleness of mind, if for no other reason than to position yourself correctly so that you can ask God for wisdom and trust that he will supply it in real time. Or maybe there's a delay, things happen according to God's clock and not ours. And be careful where you get your identity from. Because if you ask the culture, it just might tell you that you're something you're not. And if you can't see that, if you asked Siri, who's Jim Petrick? It would bring up Jim Peterick, the writer of Eye of the Tiger. So it's a pretty cool rock song. I wish I could claim that. But it's not me. That's what the culture would say, though, that I'm somebody else, right? So we find our identity in the Creator. I guess I'm talking religion today. So, there's two basic worldviews. Either nothing exploded and then became everything. And that can happen. But nobody's ever had that happen in a laboratory. So I don't know if that's hypothetically possible unless there's an intelligent force backing that up. And obviously none of this stuff would fit together if there wasn't a very crystal clear design pattern that we are trying to follow. All right, so I know I talked about a lot of things today. And again, I bring up James. I don't want to preach, but I also don't want to plagiarize either, because most of these ideas from layers 2 and 3 go straight to those 8 verses. And it was very impactful for me, and that's why when I introduce myself now, I introduce myself as James, because after all, that's what it says on my birth certificate, not Jim. Thank you for being with me. We got 2 more days of Tic Tac A.D.I.O. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, where we tackle tic-tac-toe day number 8, Tic Tac A.D.I.O. X3. Have a good night, everybody.